Okay, my second tip. When you're doing the armbands, I like to go ahead and fold it. Here's the pattern piece. So pretend this is a piece of fabric. I like to go ahead and fold like this and press a nice crisp line here. Again, I find that using a spray bottle full of water helps to dampen the fabric that when the heat is applied will create the steam that will give you a nice fresh pressed line, because what you're going to do is then you're going to unfold it, you're going to put right sides together, and you're going to sew your seam allowance here. What that pressing does is sometimes it can get tricky to then, once you have a completed band like this, sometimes it can be a little difficult to fold it down like this and then get that nice crease. Whereas if you go ahead and pre-crease or pre-press your band prior to sewing the seam allowances together, you'll have a memory fold. And then when you have to repress the seam part where the two right sides go together right there, it'll already be, for the most part, folded down, and you can just give this thicker part where now you have some bulky fabric. You'll be able to just press that one little area and you're good to go. Now, you could do one of two options at this point. You could go ahead and finish off the edges. I wait because I trim my seam allowances on the sleeve because I do not want a bunch of bulky fabric right there around my arm. It might mess up the puff. It could fold down. So what I do is I will go ahead and sew this on as per the instructions, where you're putting the right sides together from the sleeve. And, you know, at this point, what you're going to do is, let me get this right side out. So your sleeve is going to be right side out. I match up the seam that I made on the band to this underarm seam of the sleeve right there. And when I start attaching, that's going to be my anchor point. Before I do that, I'm going to start pulling those gathers, and I just put it down flat on my page or on my table, and I start with it like this. So I've got all this right here that needs to gather in, and I just use that as a guide. Now it's not going to be perfect until I start actually attaching the band to the gathered sleeve, but just start gathering and spread those gathers out as evenly as possible. You're not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Guess what? It's okay that it's not perfect, because what's going to happen is once you get it to the machine, you'll be able to adjust them as you go if there's minor imperfections in the gather spacing. This leads me to my next tip. Don't put your gathers face down on the machine. This is flat and it's not going anywhere. This will be all rumply and gathered, and you need access to this so you can adjust your gathers as you go. So I hope this makes sense. When I've got this attached, this is going to go against the plate of the machine. These are going to be on the upside so I can see them and adjust them as I need to space them out properly. So that is my tip about the sleeves and the gathering. Oh, I did mention that I wait until it's actually attached. This is what it looks like all finished. So I had extra seam allowance. I trimmed it to about, let's see, this is about a little over 1/8 of an inch, or what is that? Yeah, about 1/8 of an inch, quarter of an inch, definitely a quarter of an inch. And then that's when I choose to finish off those edges. And now they're super tiny. I use this stitch right here. It's a wonderful little, I use it as an overlocking stitch. I have other options. All these right here, if you have these, they're wonderful to have on your sewing machine, so you don't have to have a serger. You can do this without a serger. Zigzag stitch will work. Just make sure that they're closer together. And and it'll give you a nice refined edge. Trim the extra little bits that are fraying from the edge of the fabric, and your arm band connected to the sleeve part is done. Now go to your machine.